The stars stretched endlessly across the black sky, cold and silent, but aboard the starship Vanguard, silence was impossible. Commander Kale stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the displays that glowed with faint blue light. Every crew member moved with precise purpose, their hands steady, their hearts beating with a mixture of fear and excitement. The galaxy had long believed humanity was small, weak, and predictable, but Kale knew the truth. Humans were anything but predictable, and tonight, they would prove it. All systems ready. Commander, Lieutenant Mara reported, her voice calm, yet her eyes betrayed the tension she felt. Kale nodded, his fingers brushing the controls, feeling the hum of the railguns beneath the ship's hull. Each railgun was a masterpiece of human engineering, capable of destroying ships much larger than theirs. The Council had never imagined humanity could create weapons like this, and that mistake had cost them dearly. Outside, the void was a frozen battlefield, stars like distant eyes watching the unfolding drama. Kale's mind raced, calculating distances, timing, and angles, but he also relied on instinct, a human skill no machine could replicate. The Council's patrol ships glided in formation ahead, confident, unaware that the humans were about to shatter their sense of security. "Ready the first salvo," Kale ordered, his voice firm, calm, and full of authority. A low hum filled the bridge as the railguns powered up, the barrels glowing with deadly light. One by one, the beams fired, slicing through the darkness, striking Council ships with precision. Explosions blossomed like stars being born, and the patrols tried to respond, but it was too late. Humans had moved faster, thought sharper, and attacked smarter than the Council expected. Mara watched the destruction with a mix of awe and thrill. Knowing this was only the beginning, Kale turned toward the navigation console, his eyes scanning for the next target. A new weapon waited in silence, an invention that could move soldiers in small squads instantly across space. The Council had relied on distance and formation to protect themselves, but humans had already learned to ignore distance. Kale's mind raced with possibilities. Teleportation could turn every defensive plan into chaos. Every second counted. Every decision could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. "Coordinates for teleporter unit set," Commander Mara said, her fingers dancing across the controls. Kale took a deep breath, the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. This was the moment when humanity would show its ingenuity, bravery, and skill. The Council had never faced an enemy like this, one that could think, adapt, and strike in ways no one could predict. A warning signal blinked on the screen, a final message from the Council demanding surrender. Kale's lips pressed together. "They still do not understand," he murmured. "We are not afraid." Outside the ship, the void seemed to grow darker, more menacing, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The first salvo had begun a war of shadows and brilliance, a test of human will against a galaxy that had always doubted them. Kale's gaze settled on the stars ahead, his mind clear, his purpose unwavering. The railguns had struck, the teleporter waited, and humanity's story was about to change forever. He turned to Mara. "Let's show them what humans can do," he said, and for the first time, the crew felt the thrill of true power. The Council had no idea what was coming, and by the time they realized it, it would already be too late. The Council's fleet had expected humans to attack in a simple, predictable way, but now their confidence was unraveling. The Vanguard glided silently through the void, invisible until it struck. Kale's fingers hovered over the teleporter controls, each second stretching like an eternity. Outside, the Council ships moved in tight formation, their weapons ready, but they could not see what was coming. They could not predict a force that could vanish and reappear anywhere. "Anytime teleporters ready," Mara whispered, her hands steady, her eyes fixed on the display. Kale nodded, taking a deep breath. "Deploy units," he ordered. The first human squad blinked out of existence from the Vanguard, and moments later, they appeared inside a Council frigate. Systems shut down, alarms blared, and Council officers screamed in confusion. Humanity had not just reached the stars, they had entered them unseen, unstoppable. Every teleportation strike was precise, surgical, and devastating. Another squad appeared in the engine room of a massive cruiser, disabling propulsion and communications before anyone could respond. The Council's fleet was in chaos, their formations breaking apart as humans struck in ways that made no sense. Mara's fingers flew across the console, coordinating new teleportations. Kale's mind calculated every move, knowing the next strike could decide the outcome. From the command bridge of the Council's flagship, officers shouted orders that could not be followed. Humans moved too fast, thinking too clearly, and using technology the Council could barely understand. Kale watched the battle unfold with a mix of exhilaration and focus. Humanity's plan was working, and the Council had no answers. Every teleportation strike brought new confusion, new fear, and the realization that the humans were not just soldiers, they were masters of unpredictability. Mara smiled as a squad appeared aboard another enemy vessel, disabling the ship's weapons before anyone could fire. The Council officers' faces turned pale, disbelief written on every line. Kale knew the teleporter's power was more than just tactical. It was psychological, a weapon that shattered their confidence and control. Humanity had become the unknown factor, and the Council hated it. Enemy reinforcements approaching from the rear, a young officer reported. But Kale already had a plan. He ordered another teleporter strike, and the reinforcements vanished into chaos, appearing inside their own command ship. Stunned and helpless, the Council's fleet was faltering, their authority slipping like sand through fingers. For centuries, they had ruled with fear and strategy, but humans had shown that courage, intelligence, and technology could overturn any hierarchy. The void was alive with energy, teleportation pulses creating flickers of light and sound across space. Ships that once felt safe now floated like trapped fish. Powerless, Kale's railguns hummed in the background, ready to strike any target Mara and the squads could not reach. Together, the railguns and teleporters formed a combination of force and finesse, a human symphony of destruction that the Council had never imagined. In the Council's capital, reports came in one after another. Officers shouting, scribes writing, leaders panicking. They had lost control over their fleet, and worse, they did not understand how or why. The humans had turned every assumption upside down, each strike a lesson in ingenuity and unpredictability. Kale leaned back slightly, watching the chaos spread. They still think this is war by their rules, he muttered. But we play by our own. The vanguard moved forward, teleporters ready for the next target. Mara glanced at Kale, excitement and determination shining in her eyes. Humanity had begun to prove itself, not just as survivors, but as masters of strategy and technology. The Council had underestimated them, and now, their power was crumbling. Ship by ship, strike by strike, across the stars, the shock of human brilliance was spreading, and no one in the galaxy would forget it. Panic spread across the Council's command like wildfire. Their ships, once symbols of power and order, now drifted aimlessly in the void, alarms blaring, communications failing. Council officers shouted orders that could not be followed. Kale watched the chaos unfold from the vanguard's bridge, a cold satisfaction in his eyes. Humans had not only broken through their defenses, they had shattered their confidence. The Council had believed centuries of authority could protect them, but no plan could stand against unpredictability. Reports of multiple teleportation strikes incoming, Mara said, her voice steady, yet tinged with excitement. Kale nodded, his mind racing. Each strike needed perfect timing. Each human squad moved like shadows, appearing where the enemy least expected, sabotaging engines, weapons, and command systems. The Council fleet tried to regroup, but every attempt failed. Humans had learned the pattern of their strategies and turned it against them. From the Council's capital, leaders stared at the screens in disbelief. Their carefully built fleets were being destroyed piece by piece. And worse, they could not understand how the humans moved with creativity, speed, and precision, qualities the Council had never accounted for. Kale watched as their ships collapsed under relentless attacks. Each teleportation strike was followed by railgun barrages, the combination unstoppable, the Council's fear growing with every explosion. The Council's panic was not just about losing ships, it was about losing control. Authority that had lasted for centuries was slipping away like sand through fingers. Messages poured in from sectors across the galaxy, commanders begging for help that could not arrive in time. Kale smiled slightly, knowing that the real power of humanity was not just in technology, but in will, courage, and cunning. Each officer aboard the Vanguard understood the gravity of the moment. This was history in the making. Enemy reinforcements are trying to flank us, a young officer reported. But Kale already had a plan. Teleporter units blinked across the void, appearing inside the flankers' ships before they could fire. disabling weapons and engines almost instantly. The Council had never faced an enemy that could strike inside their defenses without warning. They had relied on numbers, coordination, and intimidation, but humans had proven that none of that mattered. Mara watched a squad disable a capital ship's main cannon, the explosions rippling through the Council formation. "They can't stop us," she said, excitement in her voice. Kale nodded. "Not if we stay ahead of their expectations," he replied. Humans were not just fighting, they were rewriting the rules of war, using railguns for brute force and teleporters for precision. Every attack was a message. Humanity could not be controlled, underestimated, or ignored. In the Council's chambers, panic turned to desperation. Leaders argued and shouted, blaming one another for failures they could not fix. Kale saw the opportunity. The moment was coming when the final shock would end the Council's authority forever. The humans had demonstrated strength, skill, and intelligence, but now it was time for the decisive blow, one that would ensure that the galaxy understood humans were no longer a minor species. They were a force to be reckoned with. The Vanguard glided silently toward the heart of the Council fleet, railguns primed, teleporter units ready. Mara's hands flew over the controls, orchestrating another wave of attacks. Kale's mind was focused, clear, and determined. The Council's panic had created openings humans could exploit, and Kale intended to exploit every one. The galaxy watched in silence, as if holding its breath, waiting for the moment when humanity would deliver a lesson that could never be forgotten. Kale looked at Mara, eyes meeting hers in quiet understanding. "Prepare for the shock," he said, the words carrying the weight of destiny. Humans had brought the Council to its knees, with railguns and teleport, but the final act would erase their authority across the stars. The Council would never recover, and humanity's legend would begin its rise. The moment had arrived. Kale's voice carried over the bridge, calm and commanding. "Engage the shock." The device, built over decades in secret, hummed to life, energy flowing through its circuits like lightning contained in a cage. Across the Council fleet, sensors blinked in confusion as the pulse began, systems faltering, communication arrays scrambling, and command protocols failing. Ships collided, weapons misfired, and panic spread faster than any human strike could. Mara's fingers danced across the controls, guiding teleportation squads into the chaos. Every move was precise, every strike timed to perfection. Humans had become ghosts in the void, appearing inside enemy ships before anyone could react. Railguns fired from the Vanguard, cutting through fleeing vessels, the explosions echoing like thunder in the vacuum of space. The Council's pride and confidence crumbled, replaced by fear and disbelief. The shock was more than destruction, it was a lesson, a reminder that authority was meaningless without respect and understanding. The Council fleet, once a symbol of order and control, now drifted like broken toys, powerless to stop the humans. Kale watched the chaos with quiet satisfaction, knowing that centuries of arrogance and overconfidence had led to this moment. Each human action had been calculated, but the overall effect was breathtaking in its unpredictability. Council leaders shouted in panic, trying to issue commands, but every effort failed. Ships blinked into teleportation strikes, engines exploded, and weapons became useless in a flood of controlled chaos. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath, watching humans demonstrate that skill, courage, and ingenuity could overcome any empire. Mara's eyes shone with excitement as another squad disabled the flagship's main power core, leaving it drifting, powerless and helpless. Kale turned to the navigation display, plotting the next target. The shock had opened doors, created opportunities no one had imagined. Humanity's strategy combined force, speed, and innovation in a way the Council could never anticipate. Each strike was deliberate, each movement calculated, yet to the Council it felt like magic, a force beyond comprehension. The humans had rewritten the rules of engagement, teaching the galaxy that mastery over technology was not enough. Understanding, courage, and ingenuity mattered more. In the Council's chambers, alarms screamed, lights flickered, and leaders argued, chaos replacing order. The shock had done more than destroy ships, it had shattered belief, eroded the perception of control, and made every officer aware of human potential. Kale knew the final step was near. The Council would never fully recover their authority. The message had been delivered, and the galaxy would never see humans as mere children of a minor planet again. Mara leaned back slightly, exhausted but triumphant. "It's working," she said, voice trembling with excitement and relief. Kale nodded. They underestimated us, he replied, and now they will remember. Outside, the void was still, debris floating like silent witnesses to the power humans had unleashed. The shock had ensured that no corner of the galaxy could ignore humanity's rise. No system could claim invincibility against ingenuity and determination. The vanguard moved forward, surveying the aftermath. Teleporters ready, railguns primed. Humans had struck fear into the heart of the Council. But Kale knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had learned a lesson about underestimating humans, and the legend of humanity's brilliance was just starting. The Council's authority lay fractured across the stars, and a new era had begun, one in which humans would define the rules, and none could challenge them without consequence. Kale looked at Mara, their eyes meeting in silent agreement. "The galaxy will never forget this," he said, the words carrying weight and promise. Humanity had struck. The shock had been delivered, and across the stars, the age of human ingenuity and courage had officially begun. Part 1. The HOK. The stars had always seemed quiet, distant, and harmless to humanity, but Commander Kale felt the tension in the bridge of the starship Vanguard, the hum of the engines vibrating beneath his feet, like the heartbeat of a giant predator. Across the galaxy, the Council's fleets floated like guardians, watching, calculating, believing themselves untouchable. They had underestimated humanity, Kale thought, as he observed the targeting systems flicker with the readiness of the railguns mounted along the ship's spine. Each railgun was a promise of destruction, a reminder that humans had mastered weapons the Council never expected anyone to wield. "Coordinates locked, Commander," Lieutenant Mara said, her voice steady but tense, the screens reflecting in her eyes like shards of frozen light. Kale nodded, his mind racing through every calculation, every probability, yet the unknown still lingered like a shadow at the edge of reason. Suddenly, alarms blared, red light strobed across the control room, and a signal appeared on the communication screen, an encrypted message from the Council itself, demanding surrender. Kale's lips tightened. "They still don't realize," he muttered. "We are not afraid." Outside, the void was silent but deceptive, and Kale ordered the first salvo of railgun fire. The beams tore through the darkness, hitting the Council's patrol ships with precision. Each strike was calculated, yet chaotic in the fear it inspired. Explosions blossomed in the emptiness, and the Council's officers, watching from their distant command posts, felt a chill of disbelief. This was not war as they knew it. This was a human storm, unpredictable and brilliant. Kale watched the results with a mixture of awe and cold satisfaction. He knew the real test was coming, a challenge that no railgun alone could face. As the smoke of destroyed fleets drifted in microgravity, a new device hummed to life aboard the Vanguard, an invention designed to outmatch the Council's best defenses. Mara's hands danced over the controls, and Kale held his breath. Teleportation could give them an advantage the galaxy had never seen. If the Council believed they could predict human strategy, they were about to be proven wrong. Kale stared at the stars ahead, the endless darkness, and felt a surge of pride mixed with fear. Humanity's ingenuity was being tested at the edge of existence, and failure was not an option. Part 2. The teleporters, STRIK. The Council had relied on their fleet's formation, their numbers, and their confidence, but nothing prepared them for humans who could vanish and reappear with precise control. Kale activated the teleporter sequence, and entire sections of the Vanguard blinked out of existence, only to reappear inside enemy ships. The Council officers screamed in disbelief as their defenses were bypassed. It was surgical, lightning fast, terrifying in its efficiency. Each teleported unit carried the skill and cunning of humanity's best warriors, and the Council realized too late that numbers alone could not protect them. Mara grinned as another squad materialized inside a heavily armed cruiser, disabling systems before